making sure that the feed is up and running. Okay, we're there. Yep, okay. Right, thank you. Okay, so welcome members, officers and members of the public joining us virtually and in person to the executive meeting on the 20th of September 2022. As you may well know, the period of mourning was officially ended yesterday by the King. However, this is the first public meeting of Surrey Heath Borough Council following the funeral, and I think it would be appropriate for us to show our respect to Her Majesty one last time with 1 minute's silence. So I would ask you all to rise and give us 1 minute's silence. Thank you. Okay, let's begin. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Jennings-Evans has sent her apologies.
Thank you. Okay. Minutes of the last meeting, 16th of August 2022. Now, I would normally just ask members of the executive if they were happy with the minutes, but I'm afraid I need to add an apology. At the last meeting, we agreed to award the bid an additional £15,000 to provide additional services in the town centre. However, the monitoring officer brought to my attention the fact that I had failed to declare that I had a non-pecuniary interest in the bid at the last meeting. As you know, I was appointed as the council's representative on the bid board at full council, and it didn't cross my mind to announce or declare my non-pecuniary interest. So I apologise to the members and officers and members of the public for my error. I've been advised by the monitoring officer that we are not required to revisit the decision. Okay. So other than my error, are we happy for me to sign the minutes of the last meeting? Thank you. Declarations of interest. Do we have any on any of the items that we're going to be discussing? Okay, I actually do. All right. I would have declared this one because I would have remembered this, but I need to declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 5, support for social inclusion charity in Surrey Heath. We'll be discussing men's sheds taking a lease on the pavilion in London Road Recreation Ground, which is approximately 100 yards from my house. Okay, are there any other declarations? Okay, thank you. Councillor White and then Councillor Bates.
I don't know if I'm going to comment on this item, but it's just to let you know that the parish council have already given a grant to Windlesham Parish Council have already given a grant to this organisation.
Okay, which organisation would that be?
Oh, the man in the shed, the men in the shed.
Men's Sheds. Okay, thank
Men's
you.
shed. Yeah,
Yep.
sorry.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. And Councillor Bates.
Thank you. Yes, under item number 6, it's a non-pecuniary interest because there's reference there to possible discussions and funding for St Mary's Church. I am the safeguarding officer for St Mary's Church.
Okay, thank you. Duly noted. Okay. If there are no others. Okay, item 4, questions by members for myself as leader or the portfolio holders. Okay, there are none. Right, into item 5, support for social inclusion charity in Surrey Heath. Now, this paper would be Councillor Jennings-Evans, but unfortunately she's had to send her apologies. Members, the paper is the supplementary paper. If you have to find it in ModGov, it's the additional paper. Okay, so to cover it, so this paper proposes that we grant a 5-year lease to a branch of the charity Men's Sheds for the London Road Pavilion, with an initial 2-year rent-free period, followed by a commercial rent of £3,495 per annum, but with a grant for 90%, 85%, and then 80% of the rent thereafter. The 2 years rent-free is because one of the aims of the charity is to refurbish the interior of the pavilion. Men's Sheds is set up primarily to give men a place to go to share experiences, make friends and have a laugh. Essentially, social inclusion for a group that is known to struggle in these areas. I think before I go any further, I'd point out that women are allowed to join, and in fact a number of sheds have female shedders. It's up to each shed to decide on membership, and this shed is committed to women joining. This may seem odd to some, but this does not contradict our equalities policy, as stated in 9.3 of the paper. And I'd remind members that we supported the Man with a Pan initiative, which was primarily for men. Okay, so this fits. And finally, the pavilion has been empty for over 10 years with very little use and even less interest in leasing. So I would hope that you can support this proposal, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Okay, well, we don't have any questions, so the recommendation on page 3, the recommendation, the executive is advised to resolve that the council enters into a lease arrangement with the Men's Sheds registered charity group, applying a community rent subsidy as outlined within the report to support establishing and delivering their services. Are we agreed? Great, thank you. Oh, and just to make it completely formal, we're going to vote electronically because this is quicker. I have to remind myself that we're trialling this for much bigger meetings. Okay, so if we agree, it's green, yes? Okay, there it is, unanimous. Thank you. And I look forward to going to the opening ceremony of the building. Okay. Item 6, Surrey Heath Emergency Food Poverty Grant Scheme. Councillor Croke.
Thank you, Chair. So I bring this before you to the executive. So this is actually to include and help with our organisations for fuel and energy costs. So we're actually just looking to repurpose and reword this application. So we will be looking for supporting warm banks in the area. This is currently under, I can't find my words tonight. I was going to say under observation. We're currently looking at, organisations that we have already in the borough that are already giving support to the community. So we'll be looking at potentially helping these organisations, and it will be across the borough as well. So we're going to start looking at obviously what we have and then how we take it further afield. So this grant scheme is, we're looking just to reword so that we can include food and also fuel costs. Yeah, fuel and energy. So I hope I've, described that. I've got it in my head, but trying to get it out in words. So hopefully everybody understands that, and it is for non-profit organisations as well.
I think it's something that's essential because there's going to be a lot of people are going to have to make decisions about when they can put the heating on, or even if they can put the heating on. And people die from hypothermia. People suffer from not being able to have energy, being able to afford energy bills. So in the same way, people can't afford food. So I think it's an excellent idea that we open this up to be fuel and energy as well as food. Okay, and all the other rules are the same?
Yes.
In terms of maximum grant, etc., application?
Up to 5,000 per organisation for it. Okay. But like you say, I think it's not just going to be elderly. I think potentially we're going to have young families as well. So I think we have to, be prepared and obviously do our utmost that we can for them.
Good. Okay. And you're saying along with the grant scheme, there's other things that the council's doing to monitor where warm banks, we're calling them warm banks?
Yes.
Right? So where they're going to be set up and where people can go if they want to, just to be able to stay warm rather than use their own energy if required.
Yeah. So we're looking, because we have organisations that are doing this already, and Councillor Bates brought up one already that's on the Old Dean. So we will be looking at those that are already up and running, and then looking at other areas where we haven't got anything, and venues that we can bring forward and organisations we can talk to. And this is, we've been in talks with Surrey County Council as well. So we'll be working in conjunction with them as well for support.
Okay. Any other questions for Councillor Croke on this paper? Councillor Wheeler? Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I suppose really it's just something which I'm sure we have considered, but I think it's probably worth just double checking. And that is that obviously we own the Mall. I appreciate that it is managed by other people, but have we looked at any of the vacant shops in that area and considered those as a warm space and something that maybe we could offer to a charity to run on our behalf?
Yeah, I'll actually hand this over to Councillor Garrett, because he has been looking already with the square. So if you're happy with that, I'll hand that over to him. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Croke. Yeah, so I was involved in some of the meetings with Councillor Croke on the warm bank. It was something that popped up into my Twitter feed, and I've been working with Councillor Croke on this. One of the things that did come up when we had a meeting with County recently was exactly that, about shops, potential shops that are not being used. So I have spoken with the officers, given them the outline which County gave us, and it is a conversation we are having to see if there is a unit within the square that we can use to do that, or certainly have chairs available within the centre of the square where people can just come and sit as well. So there are a number of different options we're looking at, but yes, we are looking at it.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Can I just throw my tuppence worth in there that I know you raised about you're looking at seating throughout the I think it's called the square now, right? We just need to be careful that if we were to create one room and it had seating in it, that there's no stigma attached to that. There's nothing that indicates why that is a room that's been set up. No signage, nothing that will attract any undue attention, which draws attention to why people are in there. Okay, so if we're going to do anything like that, let's make sure that there's nothing attached to it that indicates anything adverse. Okay, right. I know that's a difficult balance because we might also want to advertise the fact that people can use the facilities, but I think it's really important that there's nothing that is adverse in it. Councillor Wheeler, did that answer your question all right? Oh, she did. Okay.
No, yeah, thank you. I put my
Okay.
thumbs up. That's great.
Sorry.
Thanks very much.
I missed it. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Crowe.
Sorry, just to come back on that, I actually shared with Nick Stevens and Louise today. There is a website that's been set up, and it is nationally for warm hubs. So potentially we can put it on there so people can look themselves to see as well, which I think would be a great idea. So then we could publicise that, and then they can look as well if we didn't want to do it too, that way.
I think we should avoid something like, somebody might have the bright idea of advertising or putting up Warm Hub as a sign outside a store, and I think that actually people would rather not use it if they could, right? I think, but I'm sure we'll sort that out. Okay. All right. So if there's no other questions on the paper, okay, so members of the executive, we are advised to resolve that. Small one, the criteria for the Emergency Food Poverty Grant Scheme is altered to accept applications from non-profit organisations to assist with meeting fuel energy costs when setting up a warm bank type of initiative within Surrey Heath. Number 2, an upper limit of 5,000 per application or organisation for either food or fuel be introduced. And 3, authority to agree any grant condition changes be delegated to the head of HR Performance and Communications in consultation with the Support and Safeguarding Portfolio holder. Okay. Are we agreed? Okay, thank you. And we're voting on that as well, just because I like to show that I can't get something as simple as this correct. Okay. It would be the mayor's problem at full council. Okay. Right. Item 7, community fund grants. Councillor Croke again.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I have 3 grants to put before you this evening. So I have 5,500 be awarded to Frimley Cricket Club. This is to support the purchase of a new roller for the cricket green. Up to 3,400 be awarded to the Icon charity to support the Surrey Heath Youth Council costs with hall hire and project costs for the next year. And then up to 6,050 to be awarded to Chobham Recreational Ground Charitable Trust to undertake safety repairs to 5 play areas at the recreation ground in Station Road, Chobham. So going back to number 1, so the 5,000 for the roller for Frimley Cricket Club. So obviously this is to look after their green, which they do look after extremely well. I know that over the last year specifically, and the year before during COVID, we had a huge amount of burglaries at this club. So they have spent a lot of their money and most of their reserves on putting new roller shutters, new doors, etc., to actually secure the building. So a lot of that funding they would have put towards this new roller. So this is what they've come to us for. Chair, did you want me to do it one at a time, or?
I think if you go through the three, but I had an excellent suggestion after the last executive by Councillor Tedder, that when we're faced with a paper where there's a number of grants, it would be clearer if we actually did each grant one by one,
Yeah.
rather than, because some
That's
people
what I
might feel
thought.
that you can only vote for all or nothing.
Yeah,
So we will take them one at a time when we vote,
okay.
but I think just now it's worth you going through with all
Okay.
three. Thank you.
Okay, so that was Frimley Cricket Club. The 3,400 be awarded to the Icon charity to support their Surrey Youth Council costs for the hall hire. This, I believe, I have had a few questions from a couple of councillors on this. So potentially I will take any questions on that going forward. The third one is up to 6,050 for Chobham Recreational Ground Charitable Trust. So this one, the Charitable Trust actually look after the children's playground, the playing fields and the memorial garden. And that's on behalf of Chobham Village. My thoughts on this, obviously the play area is a huge benefit to the community, and this is what the money is for, to help that, those play bits. I can't think of the word.
And we're putting in half. If this grant goes through, we're putting in half. So they're
Yeah.
finding the other half
Yes.
from effectively the parish
Parish
council.
Council are putting in, yeah.
Okay, all right. Janet, you happy to answer questions?
Yeah, happy to
Okay,
go from
so let's do the Frimley Cricket Club one first. Are there any questions specifically on the grant proposed for Frimley Cricket Club for the roller? Okay, no, okay, no questions on that one. All right, okay. Are there any questions? You mentioned you thought there'd be some questions.
Yeah,
I think
I
it's
have
pronounced Icon Charity. 3,400 for Icon. Are there any questions? Councillor Garrett?
Thank you, Leader. I just have concerns that Icon is a charitable company that has reserves, as it says here, of like 2 million, 1.2 million, and they're asking for 3,500. And whilst 3,400, I apologise. Whilst I have no particular issue with it's for the youth mayors and the youth council, I would like a little bit more of a confirmation that why they're asking for the 3,400 if they've got them sort of reserves. It just is a concern of mine. When I was portfolio holder, I did also try to get an involvement with the youth council, which I never got any feedback on, and I wanted to get a better understanding of what they are doing within the Surrey Heath, because I really don't know. So for me, from two sides really. One is the idea of, okay, they've got that reserves, they're asking for 3,500, do they really need it? And secondly, what do they actually do?
I know, Councillor Croke, you're supporting or you're proposing the grant because they are working on the youth project, aren't you? Right, which directly affects Surrey Heath. But I think it's an obvious question. With such a large income per year and such a large reserves, you know, in terms of appropriateness of giving I think, is that something you want to answer now, or do you want to come back to us later?
Yeah, so my thoughts on that, I think
See you, Councillor Bates, by the way. So.
I think it would be good to go back and get a clearer understanding on their reserves and what this is bringing to the table also as well with regards to youth. They are the only youth council in Surrey Heath, which is why I brought this, but I totally understand, and that has been spoken to me. So I would be more than happy to go back and get a clearer understanding on their reserves.
Let's see if that's what the executive wants you to do. Councillor Bates?
Thank you. Yes, I was going to talk about this one as well, but in a slightly different way. And I think it's helpful just to remember some of the history for the Youth Council, because it was set up, oh goodness, probably 15 to 20 years ago, when three councillors of different political parties, who were all young at the time, decided that it was about time that we listened to young people in our borough. Now, sadly, two of those councillors are no longer around, and I've grown somewhat older out of the youth category. But nonetheless, it's still a very important issue to make sure that the views of young people are listened to in the borough. So it isn't actually, although Icon are currently the people who are, if you like, the overseers, it was the Windle Valley Youth Project. It was also our own council at one point, and Icon, if you like, have just taken over from that. So it is a little bit of a red herring, if you like, because frankly, this isn't really an Icon key project, or wasn't an Icon key project. It's something really that is relevant to us, or should be. Now, where I do agree with Councillor Garrett and what the portfolio holder said is that over the last couple of years in particular, we appear to have lost some of that link. And I think that's a real shame, because a number of us have actually been to the Youth Council before. I know Councillor Deitch went a number of times when it was at High Cross. I've been, I think other councillors have as well, and they were very keen to have that. Now, I'm not sure, I haven't been since it's been at St Martin's. In fact, I wasn't even aware it was at St Martin's. And I think that's a bit of a pity, really, is the old Dean councillor to not know that. So I would probably, my view would be that I think you should fund the application as it is, but I do think that over this period, it should be encouraged that firstly, there are closer links with the Borough Council in terms of the members. Members would be very happy indeed to go and speak to them at all levels, at all parties, I'm sure. And secondly, it's important for us, the council, to know the feedback of young people, because that is important for our corporate planning. And here is a group of young people who are getting clear supervision, management support in order to do that. And we don't appear to be using it, or at least in part. I mean, there's mention about cycling and highways planning, but I'm not sure what we're getting out of it at the moment. And that's a shame. So I would actually say, yes, please carry on, but with a bit more link with us. Would be good. And maybe a report to the External Partnerships Committee, for example, might be one way to do that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bates. You bring up a really interesting point. That if I can't imagine no one else was going to bring this up, but when you read that they're turning over £2.5 million, they've got £1 million in the bank, you kind of go, is this an appropriate use of Surrey Heath's money to give them money, even though they're doing something which we find extremely valuable? And you've brought up an interesting point that I think you were saying that something like Icon is kind of the umbrella organisation, but there was a smaller organisation in there. Do we happen to know, yourself or an officer, if will anything stop if we don't give this grant? Would the club be cancelled, or would it not start because of this? Or what I don't want to do is kind of delay a decision. 3,500, 3,400 is a lot of money, but in the great scheme of things, if it's achieving a really good thing for young people, I don't want it to die because we get frightened off by the paper being written that says, oh, they've got millions. And, so is there any kind of, do we have a feel for the project itself and how it will work if or not they're given the grant?
Chair, I can come in if that's okay. Thank you very much. I have been doing some research since Councillor Croke brought this up the other day. There's 2 youth workers that go along to the Youth Council, and that is what the money is used for, is to make sure that we have those youth council, those workers there to actually support the Youth Council. And the Youth Council also, again, from research I've just been doing, they are very keen to engage with us. Also, there's not been any grant given to date to Icon from the council. So to say that it would stop it running, I would say that's probably not the fact. But I think the fact that we have a youth council, which a lot of boroughs and districts don't have, and that we do want to hear that young voice, it was obviously, again, working with Councillor Croke to help improve that relationship and obviously hopefully make that connection for her so she can go and visit the Youth Council. But to answer your question, I think it would continue. But again, because it is in the borough, it would be good to see us supporting it if we can.
So, Councillor Croke, do you think if this was to be investigated further, could it be brought back to the next executive a month from now? And would that in any way, you think, damage the, you know, what's happening out in the real world? No? Okay. Okay. So, Councillor Garrett?
Can I also, as Councillor Bates has suggested, as another councillor on the old dean that didn't know about it, it might be worth an invite going to both myself and Councillor Bates to maybe go along, because that might then also tick that box for me that I know what's going on, and then I can fully support it, if that's okay. Thank you.
I would personally, I'd really like to understand the point that was made by Councillor Bates about, you know, it's perfectly feasible that somebody's got an umbrella, and then there's a problem, or, you know, much less funding down at a lower level. Councillor Tedder and then Councillor Bates again.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I just ask that you check when they're actually holding these meetings, and that they are at times which are suitable for young people to attend, rather than when you can get youth workers? That I have come across that problem, which is why I'm raising it with you.
Okay. Are you happy to check that? Okay. Thank you. Councillor Bates?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to draw your attention to paragraph 3.5 in the report. And whilst I would agree that a month probably won't make a great difference in terms of this, the thing is with these type of charities and projects is that you, as you've tried to understand, you'll have an umbrella organisation, but then you'll have lots of projects underneath that. So I think it would be naive to suggest that if we gave no money to this, that ICON is suddenly going to fund it. Why would they? They're a large organisation across a whole of Surrey. And if you see that historically the money has been given by project funding, primarily from Community Foundation for Surrey and other pots of money, with some unrestricted reserves from ICON. Now, it's quite true to say that the overall charity has very healthy reserves, but that isn't specifically in relation to Surrey Heath. That's above the whole of Surrey. So I think we have to be somewhat sceptical that ICON would fill in the gaps if we thought as a borough we're not going to offer any money to it. Why would ICON? I mean, that's the question I think that we'd need to understand. But I don't think there'd be a problem for a month. There'd be funding up for a period of time. And the question is how long or how sustainable does this need to be going forward?
Yeah, thank you. Okay. All right, any other questions about ICON? I'll try and kind of sum that up when we come to vote. All right. Okay, and finally, Chobham Recreation Ground. Any questions for Councillor Croke on the Chobham Charitable Trust? What they'd like to do is refurbish, I think you said 5 play areas, right? Okay. I think we've got some track record here. We've worked with parishes. You know, the residents don't stop being our residents simply because they live in a parished area, and we've got a history, somewhat checkered history, I think, in talking to people like Councillor Tedder, where the council, I think the parish council, the borough council, and ideally the county council should all work together in areas, and between us we can fund things better than just being left to one organisation. This, to me, is a good example of the borough's putting in half, and whether it's the trust or it's the parish are putting in half. But the bottom line is our residents get a 5 refurbished play parks, which is good for me, I think. Okay, so if there's no questions there, all right. I think what we're saying, if we go to, we're looking at the recommendation. Okay, so if I take these one at a time. So we're going to vote 3 times, but I'm going to change item 2. So item 1, we're asked to resolve that the up to £5,500 be awarded to Frimley Cricket Club to support the purchase of a new roller for the cricket green. We're voting now. Do you agree? Yeah. Look at that, even says Frimley Cricket Club. Yeah, okay. Right, somebody's working furiously in the background there. All right. Okay, so the answer to that is yes. I think, Councillor Croak, from the thing, there's a good point. I want this grant to go through because I know about the youth project and it is very, very valuable to the people who are involved. And although it's 15, they're planning on growing it to 25, which is good. But I think we've got enough questions about the structure of the funding that I think it's worth taking a month. All right? Now, I don't know if we just simply would be better off saying, take a month and bring the paper back in a month's time, or if there is a mechanism by which can we delegate authority. We can agree that if the portfolio holder decides that the funding structure is sufficient, that it makes a good use of Surrey Heath residents' money, that the grant should go ahead. Can we delegate that authority to that to the portfolio holder and the head of?
Yeah, the head of HR, Performance and Communications.
Yeah.
Leader, I think you can. You could agree to fund the grant subject to approval by the portfolio holder in consultation with the head of HR, Performance and Communications.
That seems to me a more efficient route, and we trust Councillor Croak and Mrs Livingston to make the decision, but we're ready to back it up. But if you get to the point where I think we're saying, you know, if they've got millions in the bank, I'm really struggling to see how that's how we would do it. But we're happy to delegate authority to you. So if we're agreed that we will delegate authority to the portfolio holder and the head of HR and comms, please vote now. I bet you don't have that written on the screen. Right? Oh, Icon grant. Okay, right. Short-handed there, but fair enough. Okay. Yep, that's carried. Thank you. And finally, the Chobham Recreational Ground Charitable Trust. We are advised to resolve that up to 6,050 be awarded to Chobham Recreational Ground Charitable Trust to undertake safety repairs to 5 play areas at the recreation ground in Station Road, Chobham. Right. Are we agreed? We are. Thank you. Okay. All right. Right. Moving on. Okay. Number 8. Afghan relocation and assistance schemes wraparound support. Okay, Councillor Croak.
Thank you. Let's hope I can get my words out on this one. I think because I've got it all in my head and it's trying to get it out. Okay. Okay. So obviously this says on the title there. So we are looking to help support the Home Office with the Afghan relocation and assistance scheme. So this would be supporting families who would be placed in temporary accommodation in 6 units in Camberley Town Centre, and we are looking at the family support team to help with this. Now, the money will be coming down from central government. I have obviously spoken to my officers on this to make sure that we are in the position to do this, that we are not going to be overstretched, and that the money will be there to help support this. As we're well aware, these people have either worked on behalf of our government or with our forces. So again, it's an opportunity to help support these people into the community. I have no issues with it at all. Neither have the officers. So I suggest that we do go ahead and we support this. The bottom line would be if we don't, the Home Office will be doing it anyway. And in my eyes, for us to be able to help support in our area with our own officers, we will be better off doing that to help integrate it into our community. And they're all hard workers. And we've already proved that with our 5 that we had here previously, who are all now in private renting and working full time. So I have no issues whatsoever with this and feel that it should come forward and be carried by everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And when you say they were working for the British forces or the government in Afghanistan, was that under the locally employed staff scheme mostly, which assumes that, without being too melodramatic, their life would be in danger in Afghanistan. So, okay, well, they deserve some support, don't they? So, okay, any questions? Councillor Malvaginam.
Thank you, Leader. I mean, I read this paper. I'm, of course, would support it unreservedly. It's important that we support it. But I want the exec and the councillors here, other councillors here, to note the section 151 officer's comment on paragraph 6.1, which is most important because I don't want to give a lecture now, I'll give a lecture later, but it is, the government is borrowing money heavily, and they are not going to help or give us any more helping hand as a council. I have a feeling one glorious day, they're just going to say, we are not going to fund it. So it's going to end up on our laps. So we have to be ready for it. If so, the exec needs to think about it very hard. That's the only comment I have to make. Other than that, I support it wholeheartedly. So subsidiary question to this is, I know we had some refugees in Lakeside Hotel. Do we know what's happened there? Are we supporting it, or is the government supporting it, or is it going to leave it to us to pick up the bill going forward at a later stage? I'm sure you won't know the answer, but these are points you need to bear in mind. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We'll go back to your point. Thank you for your support of the paper. Okay. My understanding, and the 151 officer is quite right, the governments of different persuasions have at times instigated programs where they've asked county or borough to pick up tasks, only to find later that the funding of that task is then withdrawn for perfectly good reasons. And the council is always then faced with the dilemma of, do we continue to support people in the borough, or do we close it because we don't have the funding? And I think that we would be in the same position if the funding was withdrawn. However, I think the risk of that is fairly low in this one, given the fact that we're talking about 5 families, and we're talking about the funding is there. And as Councillor Croke has said, we've now got experience that people from Afghanistan in this kind of predicament have very quickly moved on to full-time employment and private rented. So I think you're right to point out that we really need, as we've often talked about, Councillor Malvaginam, a plan B, right? But I think in this case it's relatively low risk. I think you've just made a good point about, or you've made a point about another area where there were not asylum seekers, I think, but or there were asylum seekers. One of the things that's really, really important just for the safety of these families is that you've referred to it as temporary accommodation within Camberley or within Surrey Heath. And I think that has to remain there. I know it's already in public domain where the asylum seekers were housed, but I think it's important that we give these people anonymity and allow them to get on with their lives, because there are some people who, frankly, resent them being here and are prepared to act outrageously. So I think it's important that we keep it anonymous of where they're staying. My brief answer to your second question is, are you confirming that they're, I think I know the answer, but are you confirming it's closed?
So the question was about Lakeside Hotel, I think. So this arrangement of placing Afghan refugees in smaller accommodation is a deliberate policy shift from the government, moving away from the use of hotels and large numbers of people in that accommodation, moving to these smaller units. So that is the shift. In terms of whether there are any refugees or asylum seekers left in that particular hotel, I think Mr. Stevens will be able to answer that question.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader. Yes, that particular accommodation is still open. It is still at close to full capacity. We are monitoring and engaging with the Home Office and the representatives at a local level to make sure that the residents there have everything that they need, that they're well cared for, and that everything is in place. We're doing that through existing resource. There's no additional burden. And there are visits undertaken every 4 weeks just to assess and ensure that we have continual engagement.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any other questions on this paper for Councillor Croke? Councillor Bates.
Thank you. It's not a question, but I just hope that the council positively promote this, because actually the people that we're talking about here are people who in effect gave their lives for us. They've given their livelihoods away. They've moved away from their area. They were serving British government and our own interests. So it's absolutely right that we support these people as best as we can. I appreciate that what that means is that some people may have to, it may impact on what some people may perceive as local needs, etc., although we are talking about temporary accommodation, but rightly so. I wouldn't have any problem telling Old Dean residents that. I think these are people who we should support, and I hope the council put out positively the reasons why we're doing so, because it's right that we are doing so.
Thank you, Councillor Bates. I agree that it's definitely something we should be doing. They have effectively uprooted and, as you say, come to a foreign country and, you know, giving up everything they know. And the bottom line was they were risking their lives, probably, and most definitely for our cause. We did discuss whether this should be something that we actually publish and say this is what we're doing. And I think the vast majority of residents would actually support that and nod and say that's exactly what we should be doing. I actually think that we shouldn't be promoting it because there is the danger of a very, very small minority. And we have had examples of this. The police have reported what's happened at Lakeside, where their location was determined and you know, their lives were actually put in danger. I think there are just some things that the council should get on with and not look to take the plaudits for it, because I think the greater need is that these people are given space to just get on with it. And so I disagree that we should be making a big thing of it and publicising it, but I absolutely agree we should be supporting it. Okay. Councillor Bates?
Thank you. We do promote play areas, even though they are prone to vandalism. And I don't think we should be pandering to the racists in our community whatsoever. This is something that we should be saying openly and clearly. I agree that we don't disclose the location, although I suspect it will come out in some courses. But this is something that we are doing. We're the second borough, by the look of it, taking positive responsibility, which I'm pleased and would be very happy to credit those people for doing that. And actually, this is something which the council are doing well. And, you know, I sit here in enough meetings and point out when that isn't the case. And now we have an example of when it is and you don't want to mention it. Now, okay, you know, at the end of the day, I'm not on the executive, but I just think you're missing a trick. We do not pander to racists in our community whatsoever. We never should, we never will. And this is something which is supporting people who have supported us. And it's really that simple.
Well, I think we can agree to disagree on that one then, because I think it's big of us to take the risk with their lives. Okay, so, okay. I think if there's no more questions, all right. Okay, we are at page 19, the recommendation. Is that we are advised to resolve that Surrey Heath Borough Council participates in the Afghan Relocation Assistance Scheme wraparound support by agreeing to support families who are placed in temporary accommodation in 6 units of accommodation in Camberley through the Family Support Scheme, through support team. Are we agreed? we are. Thank you. Okay. All right, item 9, Treasury Management Outturn 2021-22. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Leader. Give Councillor Croke a break. I'm putting our annual report for the Treasury Management situation for the borough. So this is for the financial year 21-22. The report details the level of borrowing, the source of funds, the interest paid on those borrowings. It also provides details of our cash and treasury investments and where they were made and the interest received from that investment. As at March 2022, the borough had total borrowings of 185.9 million. Of this, approximately 100 million were long-term loans upon which we are paying an average rate of 2.71% interest per annum. And the balance of approximately 85 million is made up of a number of short-term loans that we receive from other local authorities. The average rate being paid on those loans is 0.8% per annum. During the year, we paid total interest on all borrowings of 1.9 million, or approximately 1.26%. This coming year, the amount payable will increase significantly, and this reflects the fact that we switched 50 million of our borrowing from short-term to the more expensive long-term facilities during the last financial year, and only incurred the much higher interest charges for part of the year. And we estimate that the current year costs will increase by approximately £1 million to reflect those changes. That's a big impact. As at 29th March 22, the borough held cash and treasury investments of 38.9 million, which is an increase of 16.6 during the year. Interest on cash and treasury investments in the year amounted to 115,000, which is a return of 0.23%. The net balance of borrowing and cash and treasury investments was therefore 146, which is well within the guidance for a borough of our size. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Bate, no, right. Councillor Malvaginam.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I mean, it's well, we're in August, September now, so that's about 5 months behind schedule. Not behind schedule, beg your pardon, that's on the due time, but in terms of time, it's moved on. My concern is current position we are in, because I want to sort of bring it to the attention. The Section 151 officer, and I have had a conversation on this. The rates are changing, and the rates are changing very rapidly, because this particular government is going to give tax cuts and at the same time try and do the energy costs as well, which means there would be more borrowings, which means there's going to be more money supply, which means there's going to be an inflation. In turn, Bank of England, who is obliged to control inflation, is going to increase their rates. So what I want to actually ask the exec is to have a close eye on it and possibly even report on a monthly basis as to where we are, because I'm not too sure the budget that had been set at the beginning of the year would, all what's happening right now takes into account most of it, including the interest rate payments we have set in our budget. So this sort of precautionary or cautionary note to the exec to take note of it, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Malvaginam. Your cautious approach is noted, and we thank you for that. Okay, are there any other questions? No? Okay, can I just thank Councillor Perry for taking us through what is, by any definition, a technical paper. All right? When you're talking about point this and 2 points that, and there's a million here, and we've moved that to the thing, you know. I think the fact that you've explained that really well has been useful. I also think Mr. Watson, our 151 officer, is to be commended. Your comments in section 7, right, to the lay person who doesn't understand the intricate details of how you lay out the finances in a local authority, I think those comments, your 5 or 6 comments there, are extremely reassuring, that with all of your background and experience and knowledge, backed up, of course, by the portfolio holder, that when you read those in plain English, it actually gives you a strong sense of where the finances actually are, where the danger is, and what you're doing about it to make sure that we stay the right side of things. So thanks very much for those comments. We are moving to, the recommendation is that the executive is advised to note the report on Treasury management, including compliance with the 2021-22 prudential indicators. And we're also advised to note the comments made in section 6 by the Strategic Director of Finance and Customer Services, our 151 officer, regarding the Treasury policy and the sustainability of debt and reserve balances. Are we so agreed? We say, pushing our button. Thank you. We are. Okay. Right. Item 10, write-off of irrecoverable bad debts. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Leader. This is what it says it is. We obviously have, as everybody knows, a very good record of collection of debts. We're up in the high 90s on most of that, but always a few people will fall through and end up being a bad debt. And this lists those without going through every single one there. We've got a total of 55,333 for council tax and 64,000 in respect of non-domestic rates that have got to the stage where they need to be written off to keep our accounts correct. We're not including assets that aren't really assets on our debtors. So that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions about it, but I think the paper itself goes through all the detail and background if you want to dig through it line by line. It's all there. I've also got examples of individual cases if you want to do that, but I'm not really sure that's necessary, but I'm very happy to do it.
That's fine, thank you. Just before I open up to questions, if I can just remind members, the annex that is not in the public domain shows residents' personal data. So it's individuals, and it obviously can't be put in the public domain. So can I just remind members, including anyone asking questions, that you can't refer to names or addresses. You can say the last one on the list, the first one on the list, halfway down, the one that comes to this amount of money, but please don't mention names or addresses because it's personal data. Any questions for Councillor Perry on writing off the bad debts? Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Leader. It's really relevant to the council tax one and the last one on the list, to be fair, and everybody can see it. It concerns me that payments go back quite a long way, shall we say, and I would just like clarity on why it is that it goes back so far and with apparently no payments. It could be that they have been part paying. I just want to sort of clarity on that because obviously there are a lot of people out there that are paying their council tax, and I just want to just get an idea of why this particular person got away with it for so long.
So you're talking about the last line on the council tax line?
Yes, agreed.
Okay.
Which one number is that?
We're on page 37 on the annex, and it is the last line, the last resident, and you have to have really good eyesight to see this, but it's a right. Yep.
I'll give you an example of how other ones, how the situation can arise.
Brilliant.
No names, but a guy with a property closed the account with us, he rented the property, then he started making some payments, then stopped and moved out. Stopped and moved out. Cases were sent to enforcement agents, they moved out. Cases were sent to other enforcement agents and they had no luck, trying to find a forwarding address and so on. All of these have been chased, but there's sometimes 20 steps they've had to go through trying to get, retrieve the money and the debt that's been owed. But there's some tricky people out there and duck and dive and use every rule in the book to get to it. And the people to get on this list, they've had to go through that process. What I can assure you is that the department concerned is very thorough and professional in what they do. And the factors, you know, the total write-off here is less than, was 0.6% of the total, you know, collected. So it's a tiny amount. It shows how efficient the operation is. But there's nobody there that's just been left alone for 2 or 3 years, if that's what you're suggesting.
Thank you.
Councillor Malvaginam.
Thank you, Leader. Just want to first and foremost actually thank Mr. Robert, Mr. Fox rather, and his team for this great job. I mean, I've been in the council for 3 years and he's been consistently outperformed from what I can see. So well done to you, Robert. The point I have to make is, yes, I mean, we've been through this before. We've been through almost line by line in some of the meetings. And I do understand the frustration of the team trying to collect it from certain people. All what they have to do is really pay £1 and they can get away with it if they want to. But that's not the point I'm trying to make. I also want to make again a similar point, all related to the 3 points I raised already, is the future. Future, I know Robert Fox and his team will keep an eye out on it, but I think we may have a bigger problem on our hands with the impending, most likely we're in a recession now, and shortage of cash, so on and so forth. It would be good for the councillors, even the exec, to be totally informed of the growth of these bad debts. That it will again have an impact on our budgets. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know you mentioned the same points in terms of the previous item, Councillor Malvaginam. I think it's fair to say that the reporting of the bad debts and any other financial issues has been dramatically improved. All right. I think we've got a strong portfolio holder. We've got a very strong new 151 officer. Right? Although he's shaking his head going, don't look at me. Right? You're not new anymore. No, okay. Well, trust me, you still feel new. Yeah. Okay. We've got a new chief exec. You know, I think the reporting is much stronger. And I know you're asking it from the position of being chair of the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Malvaginam, which is also, I think, far more effective these days. So I think in terms of reporting, I think we're doing enough reporting for us to keep a clear picture of it. But I do take your point that things move quickly and they're not moving in a good direction for anyone, are they? So it's important we stay on top of that. Are there any other questions for Councillor Perry on the debt write-off? No. Okay. So, members of the executive, we are advised to resolve that bad debts totalling £55,333.86 in respect of council tax and £64,291.21 in respect of non-domestic rates be approved for write-off. That's carried. Thank you. Okay. Now we're going to go to item 11, which is the exclusion of press and public. But just before we do, I think I speak on behalf of all councillors and certainly the executive. I think I'd like to record our thanks and our gratitude to Mr. Roberts, to the senior officers, and to the officers that I think helped this council not put a foot wrong during the period of mourning. I was certainly under the misconception that the palace and the government, in preparation for the Queen's passing, had every I dotted and every T crossed and every council knew exactly the protocol and how it would happen. But I could tell you from knowing behind the scenes that that's not actually the case. There were certain things that we learned had to happen during the proclamation, an hour before the actual proclamation happened. Right? And the officers found that information and made sure it happened seamlessly during the proclamation and during the 10 days since the Queen passed to the funeral and the King declaring mourning was over. I'd like it just recognised that there were officers who came in from their holidays to carry out the duties for this council. There were officers who were unwell who came in. There were officers who came in the evening and did things like press releases on the website and everything to keep people informed. When we took decisions at 8 o'clock at night, at 9 o'clock at night, they were on the website. Right? Officers did that. Officers came in on Saturdays and Sundays. So I just would like it recorded, I think, as I say, on behalf of every single member of this council, that we are so proud of what the officers achieved. And I think that they are to be applauded because, you know, that there's a huge amount of responsibility on the shoulders of the council to behave exactly the way the residents expect us to behave. And if you put a foot wrong, it's a disaster. And I honestly can't think of anything that anybody could point to and say, why didn't they, or they didn't do that very well, or, you know, and that is down to the officers just carrying out an excellent set of tasks. So they are to be thanked. And I'd really like you to pass that on. And I know I speak for the other members as well. They've said it to me privately, and I'd just like it to be known publicly, but certainly from the bottom of our hearts, well done for making that happen and keeping us, as I say, without having made a mistake. I'll open, before I go to the item 11, I'll open to Councillor Whitcroft.
Thank you. I would just like to, as the Mayor, I would just like to reiterate that because the comments and support that I received was absolutely incredible, and even down to this morning when I was checking to make sure that I still had it right. The officers were brilliant in that advice and in everything they did, and certainly, as the leader says, many late night conversations were had to make sure that we were doing the right thing at the right time. So I too would like to echo your comments, please.
Thank you. I'm sure they'll be passed on. Okay. So item 11, exclusion of press and public. It's recommended that we resolve that under Regulation 4 of the Local Authorities meeting, the press and public are excluded because there will be exempt information to be discussed. Are we agreed? Let's just say